Welcome back to the Minion Moto Show. This is part 2 of a free lift, free lowering kit deal on how to do with your truck. Now, most trucks, just like mine, came stock with 2-inch lifting blocks in the back end of the truck. Now, if you want to lower your truck, all you have to do is jack the back end of your truck up, you know, like possibly the if you want, I would suggest just have 2 jack stands and put them underneath the frame rails here just to be safe. But if you get underneath here, right, the 2-inch lifting blocks are right here, used to be right here between the leaf springs and the axle. Now what I did was I went onto the back side and with a jack and a piece of wood against the leaf spring here, and I jacked the truck up from the leaf spring just enough to get the tire up off the ground, pulled the tire off, put another jack underneath the axle just to hold the weight up, and then I repositioned the jack here and jacked it back up, and I had all the weight sitting on the leaf spring instead of the axle. And then what I did was I undid the U-bolts up here, pulled the U-bolts out, pulled the 2-inch lifting blocks out, and then lowered the truck where the leaf springs are now sitting on the axle. Right, I did that on both sides. As you can see over there, the gold U-bolts there now, and the you know. So with that being said, the back end of my truck now sits down 2 inches lower in the rear end. Now it took me about half an hour, maybe 45 minutes to do all that, because I had to jack one side up, take the tire off, put another jack underneath the axle, and then drop the first jack and then reposition it and then lift the truck up again from the leaf springs. So when you do this, make sure you have like a really good 3-ton jack. But you see, I jacked it up from right here on the leaf spring, because you don't want all the pressure being put on the axle. You want the pressure to be put on the leaf spring, so the axle drops and hangs while the leaf springs get pushed up. Now if you ever want to, the U-bolts are like 20, they come in a pack of 2. At AutoZone they're like 20 bucks a piece. At O'Reilly's they're like $21.99, so $42 plus tax. Now on the Ford Ranger, which I think is also the same as the Mazda B2300s and all that shit, if you have the 2-inch lift or the 2-inch blocks in there, you had the 1/2-inch thick by 2 7/8 inch wide by 9-inch long U-bolts. Now when you get the new U-bolts like that, after you take the 2-inch lifting blocks out, you're going to want 1/2-inch thick, which is this part here, 1/2-inch thick by 2 7/8, which is from the front bolt from one side to the other, that's 2 7/8, and then the total length is 7 inches on the new bolts. So, because you got to remember, when you take the 2-inch lip blocks out from underneath your truck, you want the U-bolts to be 2 inches shorter, so in that way you have enough there for the bolts to grab onto and have enough thread that goes through. Now, if some of y'all have been around long enough for a while, y'all knew that I've been wanting to do a pre-runner build on this truck. And actually this is the same spot that I've filmed that video saying I would love to do a truck build with my truck. Well, guess what? I just lifted the front end of my truck by 1.5 inches for free. It took me about 20 to 30 minutes because I had to jack the front end up and tighten the torsion bar bolts. You know, because when you're sitting there cranking on it, it takes a good amount of force to turn those bolts, you know, because you're twisting a lot of weight on a little bolt about this long that's only about that thick, you know. So that's a lot of weight, you know, and that's why you want to lift the front end of the truck up, so that way when you tighten the torsion bars to lift or lower the front end of the truck, all that weight isn't pushing against you on that, and then you're not having to, you know, try to carry half the weight of the vehicle by twisting that bolt. Now on the back end, you know, it was, you know, sitting up it doesn't look like it's as much of a difference in the back end with the 2-inch lift compared to I dropped the back end by 2 inches, but it doesn't look like it's as much of a difference as compared to the front by lifting it by 1.5 inches. But you know, you can tell it's kind of leveled out, maybe tilting towards the back a little bit. Now when I had the 2-inch lifting block, I did that first. I lifted the front end of the truck first, then I dropped the back end. Now when I had the lifting blocks in the back end, you know, the truck felt a lot taller, and it still feels taller now just because I lifted the front end of the truck. So another thing you want to do is, if you do that and you really want to save some gas, take your tailgate off of your truck, especially if it's an older truck. These newer trucks, you know, they're more aerodynamic, they're lighter, and like the Fords are made out of aluminum, so it's not really big of a deal. But with me, my tailgate here weighs about, I don't know, 50, 60 pounds, maybe 70 pounds or something like that. It's kind of a heavier tailgate because it's made out of steel and shit, and it's an older truck. Now that's gonna give you better gas mileage in 2 ways. One, weight reduction. That's that much less weight that the truck is gonna have to move. And now if I ever have to haul anything, I have my tailgate and I can just slap the thing back on, do what I gotta do, and then when I get back home, take the tailgate back off. Second way it's gonna save you some fuel is when the airflow comes up and over the cab of the truck, it's going to want to come back down into the bed, and it's going to hit your tailgate. So it's going to be like a parachute, right? Now a lot of people would say, well, just lay the tailgate down. Well, doing that is not that smart, because I've had, like, your tailgate's going to be flopping around and bouncing around. It's going to get dents all the way across it from hitting the bumper, and it's gonna pop off, and you're just gonna destroy the thing. It takes 2 seconds to pop the tailgate off and pop it back on. Now another benefit also from lifting the front end of the truck is, instead of the front end of the truck sitting lower like this and pushing down and causing drag, and having the back wheels, the back end sitting up higher, is the back tires are going to spin faster than what the vehicle is moving, because you don't have the weight on the rear wheels to push the truck. So it's going to cause you to burn more fuel, and your tires are just going to spin faster than what they should. Now this is going to sound weird, but when your front end of your truck is lower, the weight is kind of transferred towards the front end of the truck, which means you have no grip on the front and like 25% of your weight in the back, trying to push 75% of the weight in the front. Now when you lift the front end of the truck, the weight transfers to about the center, about where the door is, maybe a little bit farther back, which means you're taking that weight of the engine and the whole front end and everything and kind of tilting it back a little bit. It's like if you had a long skinny rod with a rock on it with a hole through it, and you tilted it one way and you had all the weight of the rock on one side and you tried to push against it, you would see that there's a difference. Now if you laid the rod flat and you had the rock right in the center, it would be easy to push back and forth because the weight is centered. Now doing that again by lowering the back end a little bit, it brings the whole weight of the truck towards the center of the truck, like the back of the cab, right where the cab and the truck bed meet up. So it puts more pressure down on the back wheels to be able to push against all the weight of the entire vehicle. So you're not just spinning the tires, you're actually turning the tires to actually with grip to push the truck. So, you know, that is a, you know, even if you don't want to lower the back end of your truck, or you don't have lowering blocks or lifting blocks in the back end of your truck to take out, but you have torsion bars, just jack the front end of the truck up. Or if you don't have torsion bars and you don't have lifting blocks but your truck's still sitting at an angle, get a leveling kit, or maybe make the front end like an inch or two taller than the back. Because when your truck's sitting like this with the front end down, you don't have the weight on the back tires to push the truck, and you're burning more fuel than what you should be burning. Now when you level it out, or you lift the front end just ever so slightly, a little bit higher than the front by an inch or two, believe me, you'll save a lot of fuel. Take your tailgate off when you're not using stuff. If you're using your truck bed every single day of your life, I can understand. Don't worry about the tailgate, but that's just a kind of a free way to lift the front end of your truck. A kind of a semi, well, not really free way, but it's basically a free way to lower your truck. But you're gonna spend about 45 bucks on new U-bolts, whatever, no big deal. And it's shit you can do in your driveway, and it'll take you about an hour and a half, maybe an hour to 2 hours. Like I said, jack the front end up with an I would say one of those low profile jacks, a real heavy duty 3-ton jacks, to where the front tires have at least about 2 to 3 inches off the ground. Tighten up those bolts, drop the front end. 13 millimeter bolt, 3/8 inch drive. Do not use a 1/4 inch drive, because you'll snap the bolts and you'll snap the sockets and the ratchets if you do that. Back end, the 2-inch lifting blocks, the U-bolts are 1/2 inch diameter by 2 7/8 between the two prongs that go up where the bolts go, by 9 inch long. Now you're gonna get this 1/2 inch thick by 2 7/8 by 7 inch long for the new U-bolts on the Ford Rangers and stuff, the Mazda pickup truck, stuff like that. So those are the measurements. You're gonna need like a 17, or no, you'll need an 18 millimeter socket and a 19 millimeter socket ish, something like that. And they need to be deep sockets, 3/8 inch drive, ratchet, and that's basically all you're gonna need. Have some jack stands to put underneath the frames, whatever. Do it as safe as possible. Anyways, catch you guys on the flip side.